Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Oh, and welcome to How to Exit. Today I'm here with two guests. I have Walid Costandi and Cilento. Thank you for being on the show. We have a special guest here today.
I'm glad to be here. I know we're both really glad to be here. Let's see, getting started in M&A, was for me part of a pivot, although I had bought and exited a couple of companies before that and done several startups. The real jump into was at the beginning of COVID. So it's actually past my 3-year mark when I started and actively pursuing a role in the M&A world. A lot of my business had been in person, working with clients and in my publishing company and in my marketing agency. So that kind of, I had to find something else to do. And I found this world really interesting and very broad spectrum of people and businesses. And I jumped right in. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. Walid, how did you get started?
Hey, great to be here, Ron. Thank you also. Well, I got started in the 90s. I started an ISP with a friend of mine, and that's when we used to have dial up modem. So that was the first company I started, and we sold it in 2000. And I went off on my own. I got into real estate. So I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. But after having a stint of a full time job as an IT director, I really want to get back into owning companies again. So I started looking at buying companies, and I came across the Harbor Club, and that's how I think we all met in the end. And I was like, oh, this is great. So then since 2021, I've been deeply involved in that and helping people profit more in their companies. And that's how G and I, we started to work together to helping entrepreneurs get out of their business and make a lot of money. And at the same time, we work with them to make a lot of money too, but we want them to, of course, make the lion's share. It's their business they started.
And full disclosure to all our listeners out there, the three of us have worked together before. So one of the things that's unique and I like about both of you guys is one of the things we jumped into right after taking a course on this and learning what this world is, world of mergers and acquisitions, is one of the more complex strategies, right? We started a roll up, a more advanced roll up than probably most. And we worked on that for a while together. No fear in like trying cool things, complex things that would be considered a little more advanced in the mergers and acquisition space right off the bat. We all worked together on those. Let's jump into a little bit about what's happened since then. I know we worked together. I think that was almost a year and a half, 2 years ago now that we finished that project up. But what are you guys working on now? I kind of know, but the listeners let's start off with I guess I don't want to lead into anything, but let's start off with kind of the big project you're working on together in the roll up phase. And then we'll talk about some other cool stuff you guys are working on.
Sure. We've been working on a chocolate roll up. We jumped into the roll up again and we spent about a year or so, maybe 9 months, doing research on different industries, figuring out. Actually, we used one of your templates for identifying industries, and Walid, with his love of spreadsheets, worked with that to make it something that we could use for our specific needs. And then the chocolate industry bubbled up to be the number one industry that met all of our parameters, and we had quite a few parameters. So we started putting together. We've worked in that for about 6 months, I guess.
It's interesting as I love doing tools like that. I use Walid as an example. Somebody asked for a similar spreadsheet I'd done on something else, and I gave it to him instantly. Like, oh, you don't want any money for this or anything? It's like, no, whatever you do to it, I want to see on the other end. And the reason I give away spreadsheets and stuff that I come up with is I come up with a decent idea and then I hand it to people Walid and it comes back better.
We should touch on that for a little bit because if you're someone out there as an entrepreneur listening to this, I mean,
Mm.
it's very important. Besides being disciplined and focused, one of those things that supports that is making the right decisions. And so Ron's sheet had things like valuation, like a criteria for the industry. So we had valuation multiples, are there legal issues in the industry? Are there buyers available? We added stuff like ESG focus, is it mature, competition, that kind of stuff. And so we added a few things to Ron's sheet and then we sorted them by like higher priority. And then we just had check boxes. And then if you meet all the check boxes, you get a score. So we went through like literally 150 industries is what we looked at.
Yeah.
And then in this season, and then we came up with a weighted scoring system. And then in the end, we got one number from like 80 to 160 or something. And then we just took the highest ranking. And then I think dental and home healthcare were near the top also, and then the chocolate industry
Mhm.
was in the top. We were like, "Ooh, that's gonna be it's very fragmented. It's gonna be fun and interesting."
And when you're done, you could and when
And
you're done, you can
tasty.
do the
And
dental one, right? You
tasty.
can do the chocolate roll up, create a bunch of customers for the dental roll up later.
Well, why not? Assuming the industry hasn't shifted that much.
I like to joke and have and stuff, but yeah, the cool thing was I sent that spreadsheet over to you, and the first thing he said when you seen it was like, "Well, we probably should weight these." And I was like, "Yeah, I wanted to do the weighted average thing, but I didn't know how to do that in Excel." And it came back with the weighted average. And now I looked at your formulas and go, "Oh, now I know how to like now I can change the weights of them for myself and weight things." 'Cause every one of us have different criteria. To me, it's more important that and what's important to me is how liable is something, right? Because I
Yeah.
have other assets to protect. I have a family and kids that I don't want to risk things that I've accomplishes I've already made by a purchase about to make. So those were probably heavier weighted for me than somebody who's like, I don't have any other assets and I'm not worried about the liability. How much money does it make? The ability to change those weighted averages is going to be good for anybody that sees that. Let's go on from there. Totally going to resist any chocolate jokes, right? Like the chocolate roll up jokes. We're going to move on from there. Somebody said, well, one of my other friends said, why didn't you jump in on the chocolate roll up with them? I was like, I'm already freaking overweight. I don't go to work have to resist chocolate constantly. I was like, always ask the wife, do we have any chocolate in the
Yeah.
house? Last thing I want to do is work every single day on a project talking about
You know,
chocolate.
And the
like,
companies we talk to in the chocolate industry, I mean, it's really predominantly dark chocolate. When you're looking at slightly higher priced or significantly higher priced chocolate, it just tends to be dark. Although
mhm,
there's a lot of fine, very fine milk chocolates out there. And with dark chocolate, you just need a bite or two and you're satisfied. It's like
that's
coffee if
true.
you don't
Yeah.
mind the bitterness, or you can get even sweeter dark chocolate. Now, in my case, I can eat like a whole bar of dark chocolate, so I don't know. I'm the exception. But generally, you tend to eat less because you get satiated from that.
So you've been working on that for a little while now. You guys getting traction? I know that last I heard you guys had some real traction in that realm, and you're actually got people interested in it. So are you looking at all 50 states? You're looking at international. What's the search parameters for the chocolate roll up?
Well, one thing we did is, and this was, of course, under Gia's great advice, is that we decided to stay a little bit more focused towards our half of the country because it's just too big and there's so many opportunities. So we did focus on the right half of the country, and we have a lot of people that we're talking to, and one that we got very close to. The one we got very close to is out west. But we're at a point now where we decided to deep dive into each company more so we can have better conversations with them. So that's the stage we're at now. We're trying to build those deeper conversations, understanding their issues and concerns and growth. Because the first step for us in building the roll up is finding a really good anchor partner. So, which company wants to be the heart of it? And it's these anchors we've got to talk to. And of course, these are multi-million-dollar companies. So we're using the Harbor Club method. It's everybody thinks that they're Hershey, but some people don't think that. So when we are talking in more close details, these are the companies we're looking for that are open to partner with us and want to grow and know there's opportunities in acquisition, and that's working with them.
So in a lot of industries, they have their own language, their own mindset and stuff. So if I think, for instance, like if you're looking around, you're looking at engineering companies, they literally have their own language on stuff. Do the chocolatiers, what's the like the kind of psychographics and demographics of the typical chocolatier owner? Were they originally blue collar? Who is it that you talk? I've got my mind built like a persona of like who a chocolatier owner would be, and I'm wondering if it's wrong. Like, so what are the typical owners you're coming across?
Okay, so There's a couple of different personas. Number one is the general worker person, like either employee or executive, middle class, upper middle class, who just loves chocolate and decides, you know what? I love chocolate. I'm going to become a chocolatier. Now, there's two routes. Like, they're not all chocolatiers. You have chocolatiers and you have chocolate makers. They're very distinct. Chocolatier gets ready-made chocolate, even though
Mhm.
it's very high quality from different places, but it's ready-made, and then they have the recipe on when they add the combinations of flavors to it, and whether they convert dark
Yeah.
chocolate to milk chocolate, if they do that, or if they how they paint it and so forth, or do they mass produce or not mass produce. And then you have the chocolate maker that actually buy either unroasted or roasted cacao or cacao nibs, and then they grind it or conk it and then produce from that their own chocolate, the chocolate maker. So all demographics, they kind of move into one of these two.
Yeah.
And then you also have the purely business type that are took over a business and are just making chocolate as a business and want to scale up. And from the ones that want to scale up, many of them would fit into our idea of how to grow a chocolate company. And a lot of the chocolatiers or chocolate makers that went in for the passion, a certain percentage of them also will have that mindset also. Although they tend to our conversations and they tend to want to stay small and just with their family and two employees and make chocolate. And they're wonderful. They make amazing delicious chocolates. Beating them at all the conferences is just mind blowing. But they can't be partners with us because they have no desire, they don't have a preference to grow, right? So we want the ones that have the ambition to grow and are very business aggressive. And the language they speak is the ones that own the business and want to grow the business. They talk more like business expansion and understand capitalization, recipes, cost, marketing, expansion. We can talk a little bit more in that sense.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them, even the people who are more business focused, are still passionate about chocolate. And there's some divisiveness in the industry. There's different perspectives about how the growers are treated and things of that nature, similar to coffee, because there's that raw product and then there are supply chain issues. So there is a definite lingo, as Walid said. There's chocolate maker versus chocolatier and bean to bar, and what do all these things mean? So there's a an educational piece that we've had to go through, and a chocolatier doesn't want to be called a chocolate maker
Yeah.
and vice versa. But the passion for the cacao and for the end product and for people having, I think that transcends the entire industry. They're very passionate about it, very sincerely
I know that
passionate.
coffee can be grown across multiple areas and stuff. What about cacao? Is it just limited to a couple, or is there quite a few areas of the world that it can grow?
All
They're
over, like West Africa is a major growing area, South America, Central America, even as far as
India has
Indonesia,
some
and
too,
yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
That's
and
interesting because you're naming off a bunch of places where it's very common to get coffee too. I wonder if it's the same climate that needed to
yeah, it
grow
is.
coffee as it needs to.
I think it is. It's a very similar climate, and you have to farm it, and it has trees, so it's very similar kind of industry industry in that
And
regard.
I looked at the coffee industry a few years ago. When you guys are like doing your roll up thing, I was like, okay, what would I do if I was doing it? And coffee was on my top of my list, mostly for buying the roasting businesses and turning them into subscription based models. But one of the reasons I kind of pulled out of it is there is a lot of corruption in the coffee industry. And there's a lot of markup for the middlemen where the farmers get nothing and stuff. Is that true in the cacao? Is it you got to really watch out that the farmers being taken care of because in the coffee industry, it's very common the farmers are taken advantage of. The majority of the money goes to the middleman.
Yeah. I think it's similar. I know that there are movements to treat the farmers well, and there are some farmers that have started and that create their own
Mhm.
bars so that they can have a piece of that part of the supply
Right.
chain. And I think that there's a recognition of it throughout the industry too, to make sure that the growers are and the farmers are treated well. So it just depends on where they are in the world and how much of a voice they have. But there is an outcry, there is a stand.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, you hit the nail on the head with that. And what Gia and I have observed is that even that totally business focused chocolate makers, like you guys said, they do have a focus on a passion for chocolate, and almost every single one has a focus toward fair trade. The
Hmm.
farmers have really been abused by monopolistic middlemen that pay them pennies and then they sell it for high profit. That has begun to shift, so that a lot of chocolatiers and chocolate makers are actually buying chocolate directly from like co-ops, where the farmers form co-ops and then they get like much higher rate for their chocolate. But the fair trade movement among chocolate makers and chocolatiers who only want to source their chocolate from large chocolate makers that support fair trade is, it's really humbling how much they have a passion for that. It's quite a good thing they're doing.
And we have talked to at least one farmer and some growers too. So
Mhm.
it's and gotten that firsthand
Yeah.
view, I guess, the firsthand insight.
So so you guys are doing a roll up. The plan is to build a chocolate entity that can actually help all the business owners grow. And
Yeah.
then within what's your timeline? 3 years, 5 years, hit a certain performance metrics and then exit, or what's the overall time frame?
As you get into this business, you realize that you can set a time frame, and it's really hard to hit because you can't always force the growth in any industry. In certain industries, you can tweak the numbers if it's digital, social software that can be grown and adjusted. But in something hard, physical, like chocolate making, our target is it's going to be a minimum of 3 year run, and then it could be up to 5 years. But definitely, our objective is to have an equity stake, and we want the company owners to have a majority stake and grow it. We'll be making money along the way. We'll be making dividend and management fees along the way. But in the end, the point is to reach an exit. And then a lot of these companies we're working with, their goal is also to have an exit. If they don't have an exit in mind, then they're either not a good fit, or we must have a certain agreement that there's going to be a buyout within 3 years or 5 years.
Let's talk about some of the other stuff you guys are working on because we got a lot of interesting areas to cover here. I mean, we did the marketing roll up together. You've both bought and sold companies. What have you learned over the years that you're applying to the current roll up and that you're applying to future acquisitions? And we'll talk about your next project here in a second. But what are some of the lessons learned that you're like, okay, I'm gonna make sure all these chocolate companies they don't have to do this because I've already seen it. It's already hurt me, and I don't want anybody else to get there. Do you have any lessons learned from prior experience?
Well, I mean, the main thing is treat everybody well, be transparent as possible with the entire stakeholder group as much as you can legally and whatever. I mean, those are some
Mhm.
overarching things that come out of anything. It's not always going to work out the way you think it is. So be prepared to be flexible and kind of try to keep figuring out what's going to benefit everybody the most off
What
the
about,
cuff.
like, their financials and stuff? Are you seeing that when these companies are talking to you, they're put together, like, their financials are really well put together? Or are you seeing it's like any other industry where they're barely good enough to do their own taxes, but their financials aren't ready for any type of exit or anything? Are you seeing stuff in that realm?
Well, I mean, I just want to go back to the first question, Ron, if you
Okay.
don't mind. Like when Gio was talking about transparency, one of the things we've learned is, and I've learned this hard way a couple of times, is that you need to be upfront with all your deal structure. People don't want surprises. So it can make the first few conversations awkward, but you really have to be upfront saying, I want XYZ. These are my expectations. What are your expectations? Like, well, we want ZYX. That's what we want at all. So it's opposite. And then you reach middle ground. So either you walk away or you work. But if you've been working together for months and then you're like, okay, let's sign the deal and here's what we want, and they balk at it, it's like, you got to be upfront with that stuff, right? You're not going to give a referral to someone and then come back a year later and says, where's my fee? You do the referral and up front, and then you get your commission set up front, and that's how you do business. So that was a very important lesson. And definitely another thing I learned is that you have to deliver. You can't not deliver. If you say something, it's as good as a promise. Then it's
Yeah,
like I'll get back to you next week, and then at 10 days goes by, you already broke your promise. It's
yeah.
like you got to deliver, no matter how small or how big. So you,
Integrity.
Yeah, that
Integrity.
integrity is and that trust
Yeah.
is it's hard to build and it's very simple to ruin.
Easy to empty that bank account as who is that? 7 Habits. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but yeah,
Seven Habits. Stephen Covey. Actually met the man and have a few autographs of in his
Ooh,
books. Yeah. So let's go into. I know you guys are working on a pretty cool project coming up. I know it's not completely done, but let's spend some time on what you're building, why you're building it, why the market kind of needs it and stuff. So I'll let either one of you kind of make the we'll leak it out here first type of announcement of what you're working on,
yeah,
and we'll go from there.
I'm really excited about this. In the first roll up we did, one of the in the marketing industry, one of the things that became very clear to me was that, and also with the work I've done and the companies that I've acquired and then exited, you don't always get the payoff when you leave, the payoff that you want or they think you deserve. So there's a disparity. And part of what we want to do with the immense amount of baby boomer business owners who are leaving, some of them have not gotten their companies to the place where they want them to be, where they're going to get that, where they're going to be able to cash out with what they want. And I think they deserve it. I think if you're not at a place where you want to be, if your company isn't big enough yet and you're not going to get the amount of money you want for it, I want to help and I can help. And Walid and I have come together on that. If you want that, the time, if you're tired of, even if you're not a baby boomer, but if you're tired of putting your time into the business and missing out on that time with your kids and your family, and you just kind of want your time back, or you want to retire and move on to that next phase of your life, you kind of have to grow your company to the point where you're going to be able to ask for the price that you want, where you're going to be able to ask for the cash that you want. And that's why we developed this company called Cash Out Wealthy. I mean, a program. The program that we've been working on, and it's all about how do you sell your business. We've created a mini course called How Do You Sell Your Business in a Buyer's Market. And we're both really excited about bringing this program to people because we did notice a need in the market. So, did I capture that well, Walid? Or you have
Oh my
something
god,
else you want to add to
everything.
that?
I'm so glad I don't have to. No, really on point. I mean, that's exactly what we said. People own businesses for a long time, and even though they may be delegating and they have people working for them, a lot of critical decisions that they consider very critical, they think they can only do themselves. So there's a process where you have to kind of unlink yourself and create a process or a procedure where the decision making can be handed off to someone else. And it doesn't have to be executive. It could be something as simple as doing quotes, like a company that produces a product and they normally produce quotes to the customers before they get the invoices. Well, you can teach someone to do the quotes and you're not going to go broke. You just need to sit with them on the first few ones and they have to come back to you on the more complex quotes, but you can teach someone how to do that. And then you don't have to go and hire an estimator, your assistant manager or the floor manager who knows all the products and maybe some of the vendors can help do the quotes. And then you start shifting that. And then all of a sudden you have 5, 6, 7 hours a week free, and then you've already unlinked. Okay, now you have time to attend the grandkids events Friday afternoon or whatever. I mean, that's a quality of life. Why do you want to have a business if you want to spend your whole life there? And let's not see, you've already missed out on your kids. Now you're going to miss out on your grandkids too. So you want to bring that value to people to show them, look, here's one way that they can start regaining your time. And that's just the first step. You just do it again and again and again until you have taken yourself out of the equation. You're focusing more on growing the business. You're finding new markets. Then you can hire people to do more work. And then you can hire someone to take over for you as a director or CEO. And then all of a sudden, your business is bigger and you have an executive running it and you can sell it. And so that's selling it for 500,000, which is maybe equal to your gross profit or whatever, or your net profit times two. Now you can sell it for 2, 3 million, and that makes a huge difference in your retirement.
Very, very good. So I've interviewed quite a few business owners and professionals. Nobody ever set out to go, you know what, I'm going to start this business and work 90 hours a week for the rest of my life.
Right.
And honestly, most of the time they didn't start off on day one. They might have in the first few weeks, especially in certain industries. Like if you're a software company, it's not uncommon to start a company and expect to be
Oh,
like, excuse my French, but balls to the wall for the first 6 months to get the product. What happens is that tends to never go away. So for them, they're always at that long hours and trying to get run. They're unicorn hunting, so they're trying to run out the
right.
profit as fast as they can or the growth. The business owners in your typical brick and mortar, they never started off that way. To be honest, I always joke around, say they're usually accidental entrepreneurs, meaning that they did something really good and a buddy says, "Hey, I'll take one of those." They did something for themselves or something on the side for somebody, and they're like, realize that people paid for it. So the guy who owns a mechanic shop, he was a mechanic at his own office, at his own job, and, uncle's car breaks down, brings it over to his house, he fixes it, the next thing you know, the next guy does, and the next thing he's got all these side gigs, he's making enough money, he's like, "I should really do this on my own." Next thing they know, now they gotta learn finances, right? They gotta get the stuff for all those receipts to the CPA so you can do taxes, and then, I was like, "Okay, I gotta do my own sales, I brought 2 employees on, if I don't get some more cars in here, I'm gonna go." Now he's pulling 90-hour weeks when he thought he was just gonna be able to, like, replace his income with the side hustle.
I mean, there's a gotcha or a caveat, okay? And that is if you're at the point where you're completely exhausted or you have ailments or illnesses that are forcing you to sell the company, then it's too late to grow it. I mean, this is like a 1 to 2 year time frame that you have to
Oh,
look
yeah.
at. So if someone is wants to sell their business at a certain time in the near future, the time to start developing it into a larger business and separating yourself from the business has to happen now. You got to start now because you never know when something's going to happen that's going to, I mean, I say this very passionately because just last Thursday, a friend of mine called me. We're friends from a while back. I helped them acquire property. And he's like, "Can you please just review this offer for my building that I got?" He wants to sell it. And his business is in it. And he owns a building and the business. And then I regret not being in touch with him because I could have helped him. But he's at a point now where he's had an injury and he's developed some asthma issues and he just wants to sell the business. But he's
Yeah.
not selling the business, he's selling the assets the business owns, the production assets, and he's selling the building. Now, the real estate offer he got was very fantastic. It was a good price, and they offered him time to liquidate his business. So I told him this was a good deal and so forth. It's a very good deal. But I was like, "Well, do you want to sell the business?" And that's when he told me about his health issues and so forth.
Uh,
If I was in touch with him, which is my bad for not following up after so many years, I mean, I'm talking 15 years ago, we did this deal. I would have been able to help him transform the business, get people, hire people, keep it at over $1 million in net income, and then we would done a lease the building to the business and sell the business. And now he just owns the building, and then he can sell the building. So he could have made $1 million on the business and $1 million on the building. So instead of just
Yeah.
making let's say 700,000 or so on the building itself now,
See,
wait too long to
yeah.
transform it.
Something really cool coming up. It's called the Business Acquisition Virtual Summit, July 26th to the 28th. Join Jeremy Harbour, Roland Fraser, Carl Allen, and 20 other leaders in mergers and acquisitions. The event is the 2023 Business Acquisition Virtual Summit. How to Exit is proud to sponsor this 100% online event packed with 3 full days of expert talks from the world's most recognized acquisition entrepreneurs. Register now at businessacquisitionsummit.com. Be sure to check out their option to do the upgrade to VIP virtual networking so you can meet and talk with the other participants. Don't miss out now on the M&A event of the year. That's businessacquisitionsummit.com. I've seen it happen. I've seen people like one of the first companies I came across when I got into space was an electrical company. And unfortunately, their owner passed away. It
Oh,
was commercial electricians. They had 27 trucks or something like that. And I have to see what they went through. By the time the court had made a decision that the wife could actually take over and sign something, he didn't have any second signature
oh,
authority
wow.
on any checking accounts. Nobody had the authority to write payroll out of it. It was just
Oh,
basically he did the accounting, payroll, and run this company and had a massive coronary and passed away. That said, they sold it for trucks and assets. There was nothing left by the time that you get through probate court and
that's
the probate
horrible.
court issues authority to do something. And I pulled together a team thinking maybe we could solve this. We're a fast action team. If something happens to your company, we'll step in and run it until we can get it sold. And we'll come in, we'll learn real fast. Usually there's
Yeah.
somebody there, like a general manager, somebody that's been there for 15 years that can do it. But I talked to 6 different attorneys and none of them thought we could get like expedite getting the authority to touch the finances. So it's like, okay, there's the option, like we bring our own money, right? We raise funds, we bring our own money, we step in and we run it on our money until we get the court approval to switch over. And all the attorneys like, that's
Not
not a
gonna
good
happen.
idea because you only
Yeah.
need one person on that probate court to not agree with you being the guy that ends up running it on the afterwards or acquiring it, that you did all the work for nothing. So I never could figure out a solution for it, but I think there's a play out there in the exit world to basically to be a company that has a fast action team that can just step in and run something and keep it going until to save these companies.
I mean, if you're gonna try and do it on your own and just to bring it first off, you have to get your ducks in a row, your
Mhm.
legal paperwork. It happened to my mother. Her husband passed away. She didn't have anything in her name, not even the car. And it took her a while, which was a burden on her because she had to take care of everything else, burying him and all that stuff. You don't get your ducks in a row, anything could happen at any time. You have no idea. You at least have to have a will or a something. Power of attorney. I'm not a lawyer, of course, so don't take my word for it, but go to your lawyer, go to somebody, get it done. Go online, make a will. But the thing is, if you have your business and you know that you wanna set yourself up, it could take you several years to do it on your own, and if you have I'm making a pitch here, I guess. You have us come in, or people like us, we have this knowledge, we know how to do it, we can go in and do an audit in very quickly. A few weeks' time, get an audit. We know where the gaps are. We know what to do. And so instead of 3, 4, 5 years of you trying to do it on your own, you've got it in a year or two, maybe if there's problems. And you're at a place where you actually can get that exit or you can get the cash out of it that you deserve without being hung out to dry or losing.
There's a side effect here that you guys could help people do also. There's a I call it the trade my car in effect. So you think about this, you get ready to like to go get a new car. Right before you go trade a car in, what do you usually do to get the highest trade-in value? You either detail it yourself or you have it detailed, you make everything look spick and
Yeah.
span. And then on your way there, you're like, well, this car isn't that bad. It's all clean and nice now. Same thing happens with these businesses. If they get in there where they work with you guys and 2 years down the road, they only have to go to work on Fridays to check in with the general manager and do the check-in and, like, we're more of a chairman of the board mode, right?
You're kind of retired and you're still getting the benefits. You still might have even a leadership role in setting direction and setting vision.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that just came to mind as you were saying, when a business closes, it's not just the owner that's impacted. Aside from the owner's family, you've got the whole community, you've got the employees, you've got all the customers that are adversely impacted because they have to go and look for other jobs. They've got to look for other sorry, was it? They've got to go someplace else and the community loses out because even if you don't have a brick and mortar. So there we go.
And a
Awesome.
lot of its owners we talk to, a lot of them care about their employees a lot. So, I mean, what you're saying, they'd rather not just do that, but sometimes they don't know any better and they're like, oh man, I'm just tired and I can't do this anymore.
So, the next thing I think I wanna ask you or bring up is we talked about people trying to exit and getting the highest multiple for their business and stuff. What I'm currently seeing in the marketplace, and I've been talking to a lot of private equity and companies that raise capital, usually what's going on at the PE level and the capital raise level is kind of there's a little bit of a mirror going on in the levels below it. The people buying companies with SBAs and stuff, not fully, but whatever's true up there, you better watch out for. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Right now, there's still trillions of dollars of dry powder sitting in all these funds, these people who have raised money to acquire companies, these private equity funds, private equity companies, and they're still buying, but they're buying things that are risk adverse or riskless or whatever. They're basically
Yeah,
lower risk. That's the word I'm looking for. It's scared money. So when PE gets scared money, so do a lot of other people. And what I
sure.
mean by scared money is they're not unicorn hunting right now. They're looking for companies that have steady growth. They're not on a declining market. They're looking at your trailing 12-month average for your 24 or 36-month average of your cash flows and your profits and stuff. Are you trending up or trending down? Are you well managed? All the stuff that you guys
Mhm.
help people do what used to be a selling point, you'll get a higher multiple if all those are in place, now could actually kill the deal if you don't. The
Right.
private equity and the
Yeah.
guys out there, and a lot of times even the strategic buyers, your competitors that would buy you, they're gonna look at that too because it is a buyer's market. Buyers can be a little choosier, and they don't I guess the best way I could call our economy right now is uncertain. With the uncertainty in the current market, they're looking for sure deals. They're moving to things that are less impacted by the economy. So there's a lot of big dental roll-ups going on, right? Because you can get your teeth fixed one way or the other. A lot of pet stuff, veterinarian services, pets. I
Sure.
bet your chocolate roll-up will do just fine. People are going to eat chocolate whether the economy's good or bad, right? It's a passion
Yeah.
product, right? I've been in up times and I've been in down times. I've been in good economies and I've been bankrupt. I don't ever remember giving up chocolate because I didn't have any money. I think that one's okay. That said, how do you guys address that? How do you guys like, look, if you're considering the possibility of a sell or you just want to run your company more efficiently so that when you're ready to sell, it's there. How do you guys address the fact that you almost have to now? Because like it's not a difference between it used to be the difference between a 2x multiple and a strategic purchase of a 5 or 6 or 7x multiple. Now it's a difference between that 6 or 7 multiple or not getting any offers at all. You're just not ready.
And I've seen that. I've talked to people who are in that position where they're not getting uh, I think the point that I'm thinking about is that when you try to value your own company, and this is a mistake that I see people do, especially if they're working with brokers because they get an unrealistic valuation and they haven't taken the time and they can't. You can't really be objective about your own company. So you have to get someone else to help you because you see it one way, it's your baby. You could see it as your life work. It's your legacy. So you have a lot of vested interest in it and some filters that stop you from being able to be objective about what's broken, what's working really well, where do you need to shift, who needs to go, who do you need to promote, what products do you have online, and maybe you have a pet product that just it's making everything lag. So bringing somebody else in is kind of vital to do that audit to see where you stand and where you need to fill things in. First off, like Walid was talking about earlier, if you're running the show, nobody's going to want to buy you. I mean, just flat out, they're not going. Maybe you'll find a relative,
If you're an operator, you're only going to sell to another operator.
but it's not an easy sale either because you're still going to want to. They're going to want you to be around teaching them for a good several months, 3, 6 year, and then they need to be paid.
That having that third party look in is critical. I grew up, my father was a painter. He worked in a paint factory during the day making paint or selling paint at the counter. I worked there from summer jobs when I was probably 14, 15, all the way up until I joined the military until I was 20. And then we painted houses on the side. And I call it painter's vision. When you paint a house, especially if you're doing rollers and brushes and doing a lot of it manually, you'll paint one side. Like I would paint one side, one of my crew members or my dad would paint the other side, the other wall. We go and we'd switch and we'd look at each other and like, look at all this stuff you missed. But if you looked at that wall and stepped back, I used to try to like, I would try. I was like, okay, it's time to tell my dad to come by and check my side. I'm gonna go check his. But before I do, I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss anything this time. That way he's got nothing to do because he'd give me a hard time. And I would go over that thing left and right. And then sure enough, every single time he would come over like, look at all this mess. And when he pointed at you, you're like, how did you find that so fast? I stared at this freaking side of the house for 20 minutes. Your mind believes something's done correctly, and there's some trick it plays inside of there. It sees what you want it to see. And it's almost optical illusion level. I mean, a lot of people don't believe it exists, but it exists on anything. If you write a paper, you don't see the flaws in it until somebody reviews
No,
it,
you
edits
can't.
it, because
You
your
can't.
mind will actually put the words in that you think are there. You'll fill in the gaps. And same thing happens with these business. You go in there, you built this as just your business is your baby. It's your legacy. It's everything. The employees are your family. You've got blind spots. You've got things that are happening on the day-to-day basis that you either can't see or refuse to see or don't realize that are important to see that a third party is going to be able to look at and go, any buyers going to want this fixed.
Yeah, I mean, like the valuation aspect of things in the lower market and the smaller companies, I mean, I don't want to belittle business brokers. Business brokers, many of them do a great service in helping companies sell, but there are so many cases I've seen. Like, I looked at one just yesterday. I got some feedback about a potential company, and this is on a cabinet roller project. This company that was offered for sale had a little under $200,000 in net profit before taxes and whatever. And then they had $100,000 in I'm gonna call them ass-backs from now on, in add backs that add back the owner's income, salary taking, that add back car utilization and a bunch of other stuff, which was $100,000. So now the seller's discretionary income or seller's discretionary benefit is 300,000. So now okay, let's value this at 2x. So now it's 600,000, and then let's add a little bit for negotiation. So the price is 620,000. Well, no, if you want to sell your business, that is you're selling a job. But most people aren't looking for a job to buy; they're looking for a business
Right.
to buy. So
Right.
if I want to buy a business, I want to put someone to run it. So the cost of someone running it and being there full time needs to stay in there, and the benefits stay in there. So the net profit is 200. 200 times two is 400,000. That's the value. I know it's a very small business size I'm talking about, but when these boomers or baby boomers or other people want to sell their business and they go to a business broker and they get this unrealistic price that they can sell their business for, it sits and it doesn't sell. They just get disappointed by that. So you got to value it properly. And I think that's the disservice some business brokers do. And that's a service we want to provide. We want to say, look, it's kind of almost a slap in the face, but a come to Jesus moment. Like, its value is this much. Are you okay with this? It's like they may say yes, but they're like, no, I can't retire on that. All right, well then here's how we bring it up to them.
I'll tell you what I've been seeing, and I haven't looked. I've been doing it only online right now. It's a totally different world. I'm only dealing with single operators, 1 or 2 people things, but the last full-size business I looked at was a broker-based deal. And we got to the point where I looked at their valuations, their offer, it was interesting, signed the NDA, started getting paperwork, got to talk to the business owner, and within an hour of it, a conversation with him, had to call back after talking to the business owner. Broker let me talk to him on my own, which was cool. But when I called the broker back, I was like, "Look, you really didn't do this guy a service." He says, "Why?" And it says, "You've got an ad back on the for his salary, but you didn't take away the fact that this guy's doing 4 jobs." Like, what do you mean doing 4 jobs? He's pulling 90 to 100-hour weeks. He's the CEO. You added $110,000 into salary for CEO to replace an operator, but he's also the lead sales guy. They only have a junior sales rep. It's him and this other guy. So he does
Wow.
almost 85% of the sales that come into this company are with him. You didn't ask him what
Mhm.
his wife did for the business, but she's an accountant on the side, and she comes in the evenings after her own accounting job and pulls 10, 15 hours a week doing his books and accounting. So now you need an accountant. That's not on the paperwork, right? I don't have that. Is his wife going to continue working for me for free? We had this long talk about all these different roles he's on. So yeah, you added back $110,000 in salary or 125 or whatever it was, but you didn't take away that there's 3 other missing roles that are $80,000 jobs each. We added back 140, but we need to subtract $240,000 because they're doing the job of these other people, and I don't have that. And that happens a lot, right? A lot of the times a
Yeah, it
business
does.
broker won't look at all the different look at the org chart, figure out what's supposed to be on the org chart and go, "This is a business. Somebody has to be doing the accounting, so who's doing all the bookwork?" "Oh, my wife does that on the nights and weekends." "How many hours does that take?" She goes, "Oh, 10, 15 hours a week." "Okay." There was just a list of stuff like that. He didn't have a
Yeah.
janitor. He came in on the weekends and cleaned the factory floor and cleaned the whole place up himself. Like, scrubbed the
Wow.
bathroom. Him and his wife would scrub the bathrooms, mop the floors. It was kind of a brick and mortar type of manufacturing type of place, but they would sweep the floor. They had people on the during the weekdays for safety reasons, they would do certain cleanups, but the deep cleans, they would come every weekend and clean the office themselves. Like, I'm looking at running this thing remotely if I want it. My complaint in the business broker world is they don't look at the org chart. Most of them won't look at the org chart and go, "Okay, who fills these roles?" To run a business, X, Y, and Z needs to happen. Who does X, who does Y, and who does Z? And do we account for that in the financials?
That's spot on, Ron. I mean, that's exactly right on that point. And then this multiple, like we said, $200,000, maybe it's worth 400. But then if you increase the income and the business is now netting, let's say, 1 million profit, now it's not 2x anymore. Maybe it's going to be 4x. So now it went from a 400,000 to a $4 million valuation.
It's even more
Yeah.
beautiful than that because now you got you know you wanna leave, so now you got a full-time sales guy. If all he had to focus on do you think if you brought a full-size sales guy to take him out on 6 adventures that your next 6 calls or whatever, he sees what you do. If he's really a rock star performance, if you hired right, do you think that you've been pulling 90-hour weeks, who do you think's gonna do a better job? A guy who does spends 40 hours a week minimum to land new deals, or you who had 5 different jobs that you were trying to fit into 90 hours. So the company's gonna grow that way. The second thing is like, okay, when you get your financial team in, now the books look right, and you got guys like you, like, what can we turn in the how can we do things to increase revenue? There's higher multiples on certain types of revenue, right? Is there any recurring revenue model we can input into this? Can we put people on service contracts? Like if you're a heat and air company, service contracts, the recurring revenue on service contracts is higher than the standard multiple for the actual EBITDA. They
Yeah.
split that out and they give them a higher multiple for the recurring revenue. The big PE guys do anyway. So if you look at this stuff and you look at like having somebody come in and look at your business from an outside point and go, what did the buyer want? And how long will it take us to engineer that? I think it's a no-brainer to bring somebody in from a third party view.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because all of those things you talk about, they all have to be looked at, and how many of them if you're doing 4 or 5 jobs, even if you're only doing 2 or 3, you still don't have the time to put into if you have the expertise, which is doubtful for most business owners just because you need to know so many things, you're not gonna have the expertise to go deep on any especially, like, creating recurring revenue. That's not a minute. That's gonna take you some time. How do you
Yeah.
productize something that you're charging one-offs for? How do you keep clients coming back for more on a regular basis and create subscriptions and referral plans? And how do you increase your sales? And how do you enter other markets? How do you enter other product lines? How do you do all of these things that need to be done? How do you acquire new businesses to bolt on or boost your business or merge? How do you grow in all of these other aspects when you're spending even if you're only spending 80 hours a week, that's still exhausting. I'm just saying. Say you're spending 60 hours, you're still tired and you're doing something. Do you have an extra 80 hours to put into doing another acquisition or adding another product line? It's a lot of work.
And I would say that's a second caveat. We said the first caveat is you can't start doing this right when you want to exit. You got to do it a year or more ahead of time.
That's
Second
it.
caveat is you have to stop thinking that you have to go it all yourself. Sure, you have employees and sure you have people you can delegate to, but you can't be alone in your mind. You have to open up and let a team come work with you to work on the company with you and get you across the finish line. I think we may sound depressing to some and overwhelming to some people about this valuation issues and the lack of profit and how you can bring it up. It's a lot of work. The caveat is get out of your head. You don't have to do it alone. Like you
Yeah.
have to open up, let a team work with you and share some of that profit, but you're still going to make a lot more than you're going to do it, try and do it on your own before you have that heart attack.
One of the first businesses I looked at was a big concrete manufacturer, and it fell apart at the very end. You guys heard the story because I told it during our
Yeah.
roll up together. One of the reasons it fell apart, we actually got our LOI signed, and it was like a dollar down type of deal. Like we weren't giving any money up front because they were in big debt, in trouble with the IRS and a bunch of other stuff. But that's what stopped it from going through. On the other end was the IRS and one of their bank loans said, no, you can't transfer the assets. You have to settle with us first. That said, one of the things the owner kept saying to me along the way was like, "Hey, this thing doesn't run without me. Like, I don't know how you're
Yeah.
gonna phase me out." And she's like, "It just won't work without me." Like,
Wow.
she knew everything. She was 3rd generation. Her dad had
Oh,
worked on it after her grandfather built it. Grandpa built it, dad ran it, now she's running it. And she's like, I don't know how this is gonna work without me. I'm always putting out fires." And on the after the IRS told us no and we had to shut down, my last actually interview was like, don't I told her, "Don't ever tell another seller that. You ever tell another seller that this thing won't run without me, you either got a business that's not sellable, right? Or they're gonna want you to stay on forever and you're wanting to retire.
and
You
you're gonna
know,
be an employee.
yeah. So, and I told her, I said, "You're
Yeah.
gonna have to work for the next 2.5 years to fix," because they were working on paying down the IRS and do other stuff. And what I did is I gave her the attorney that, like, we knew we could reduce the. I had my guy, one of my guys on the team, give her our attorney because we knew we could reduce that bill. They never challenged it, and she just didn't realize she could. So we had a tax attorney lined up to help rectify the 970 something $1,000,000. I mean, I'm sorry, $1,000, almost $1,000,000, $978,000 or something she owed the IRS.
And then people think that it's going to hurt them completely when they open up about the problems. But when you open up the problems, you flush everything out. That transparency is going to help you.
Yeah. I told her 2 things. 1, don't ever tell anybody this thing won't run without me, and 2, now that you have to work on this for the next 2 years, fixing the IRS thing, 3 years or whatever it's gonna take with these attorneys helping you, work on getting yourself out of that mode because that's the reason I had to offer you $1 down and take over your $4.5 million of debt on a
Yeah.
company that's doing 13 million in revenue a year. The reason I had to do that is just so much risk upon this. Day one, I was coming in with forensic accountants to fix their accounting because it was messed up, and a lawyer team to help negotiate the tax debt down. I was like, "You fix those problems, and you've got a business here that should sell for millions, right?" I mean, it should. It's very possible, but we'll see where she goes. She's still working on it. But last I heard, I haven't checked in on her in about 5 or 6 months. I say I've got one of my guys on the team that calls her every once in a while. But the whole point of the is business owners don't understand that if you're in their day to day, the only person that's gonna and you're pulling 60, 80, 90-hour weeks, the only person that can buy that is somebody who's looking for a different job. They're sick of they're working for somebody else, and they're wanting to come in there and work 60, 80-hour weeks, and it's such a small pool of the buyers. They really are just shooting themselves in the foot. It's a luck game to find that buyer.
You need to have someone come and look at your paint job and see
Yep.
where you missed. I'll watch open
Yeah.
up and get that exposed so it can be fixed.
And
It's
you
that.
guys know so many more exit strategies than they ever would be able to find, even a broker, right? Because you guys can come in and do everything from looking at ESOPs, employee stock option programs, to just a dozen different other things that a broker would probably never offer. I think a lot of people think they can just go to a broker, help them fix it, and get them ready to sell it. And there are broker advisors out there, but they're two different things. There's advisory groups that can really help you do what you need to do. There's broker groups that can actually help sell it at the end. And a lot of brokers try to put the advisor hat on, and quite frankly, most of them don't have the credentials for it. Okay, so how do people find this? I know it's not totally ready yet, but give us some ways that people can reach out to you, find out more about this coursework you're doing, and work with you guys on helping them sell how to exit their
Um,
own business.
I think one of the best ways, if you wanted to get a hold of our mini course when it comes out, if you wanted to go to cashoutwealthy.com and sign up, we'll also have some more information on there to help you understand what we're doing. You can also reach either one of us at our names at LinkedIn. We have our Choco Thrive page on LinkedIn also, which is our chocolate roll up. So I think those are
Yeah.
the best ways. If you wanted to reach either one of us at our names with a dot, gia.cilento at cashoutwealthy.com. If you wanted to email me, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And I'm sure Walid has a dot in
Ditto.
the middle of his name at cashoutwealthy.com. We can put that up at the end, Ron.
We'll make simpler emails. Walid at Cash Out Wealthy and G at Cash Out Wealthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll put that up in the end or make sure it's in the show notes for you guys who are driving. You don't have to write that down. We'll put it in the
Yeah.
show notes. So last question here. Now this is individually. If somebody so Waleed will go with you first. You're on the spot. If somebody can only remember three things from the show today, what would you have them remember as far as mergers and acquisitions go?
All right. Number one, start preparing now when you want to sell. Number two, it's okay to open up and think about your business in terms of that you are not the most important person in the world for it, that you can delegate everything you do. And then number three is you really don't have to go it alone.
Okay. And what are yours? You
I
can't
think
use the
we took
same
all
one.
the good ones. No.
Nope, you can't use the same ones. Three takeaways that you'd
Three
want people to know.
takeaways.
I made it harder for Gia. She has to go after you.
Yeah. There's a way to do it. And keep your options open. Don't close your doors because you're frustrated. Reach out and ask for help. I think is that one? That's probably one. But really, that is the main one. Ask for help. And I know a lot of people don't like to ask for help. I hate it. And they say men are worse at it than women. I don't think it's true. I think nobody likes to ask for help. Maybe some people do. But number two, you have to be, I hate to say it this way because it sounds kind of pessimistic, but you have to understand that right now it is a buyer's market. And don't have the exit dictate to you. You choose what kind of exit you're going to have. Don't be sitting, don't have your exit be at your desk failing your family. Decide what it's going to be and make it happen.
All right. So one more time, how do people reach you? And we'll call that a show. So Waleed, if somebody just wants to Waleed's a really cool guy. I want to connect with him and keep track of what Waleed's doing in the world. How do you want him to do that? Where do you hang out?
Cashoutwealthy.com. That's what that's where people want to find us.
Okay. How about you, Gia? Is that where you want them to go? To your email on
Yeah,
cashoutwealthy.com or
yeah.
yep. Okay.
It's simple. GIA@cashoutwealthy.com. In case they're not reading, in case they're listening,
Okay.
GIA@cashoutwealthy.com, or Walid, WALID, at cashoutwealthy.com.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
we'll call that a show.
Hey, it's your host, Ronald Skelton. I want to thank you personally for watching the show today and invite you to call our new hotline, 918 641 4150. That's 918 641 4150. Call us and tell us about our show, ask questions, suggest guests, or even tell me about a business you have for sale, and we'll reach back out to you. Again, that number is 918 641 4150. Call our hotline, leave us some information. Thank you.
I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.